In the American corporate system, not all office jobs are exposed to artificial intelligence equally. Some roles are becoming more efficient, others are becoming easier to automate, and a few, though rarely discussed openly, are becoming structurally vulnerable. The question is no longer whether AI will affect white-collar work in the United States. It's which roles are most exposed and how soon it begins to matter. When people talk about AI replacing jobs, the conversation often becomes dramatic, but in reality, that's not how these shifts usually happen. Artificial intelligence rarely eliminates entire professions overnight. Instead, it targets specific tasks, especially repetitive, rules-based, or process-driven work. Most white-collar roles in the United States are built from many smaller responsibilities: reporting, documentation, analysis, coordination, communication. When AI systems become capable of handling some of those tasks faster and at lower cost, the role itself doesn't always disappear, but its structure begins to change. And when enough tasks inside a role become automatable, the economics of that position begin to shift. And when the economics shift, companies start making different workforce decisions. That is where exposure begins. The first category includes roles that rely heavily on structured, repeatable digital tasks. These positions often involve analyzing information, producing routine documentation, or coordinating predictable workflows. In many American companies, several of these responsibilities are already being supported or partially handled by AI systems. One example is entry-level data analysis roles. Tasks like organizing datasets, generating standard reports, and identifying common patterns are increasingly being assisted by AI-powered analytics tools. What once required hours of manual spreadsheet work can now be completed in minutes. Another example appears in content production and marketing support roles. Drafting product descriptions, summarizing reports, writing internal communications, or generating first-pass marketing copy can now be assisted by advanced language models. The role doesn't disappear, but the amount of human time required often changes. Administrative coordination roles are also beginning to shift. Scheduling meetings, organizing documentation, tracking project updates, and managing internal communications are tasks that modern workflow software can increasingly automate. Individually, none of these tasks defines an entire job, but when several responsibilities inside the same role become faster, cheaper, and automated, companies begin to reconsider how many people are needed to perform that work. That is why these roles are often considered among the most exposed to early AI-driven change. The second category includes roles that involve more judgment, collaboration, and decision-making. These positions are not easily automated in full, but parts of the work are beginning to change. One example is financial analysis and reporting roles. AI systems can already assist with data processing, forecasting models, and generating initial financial summaries. But interpreting results, evaluating risk, and making strategic recommendations still require human judgment. As a result, these roles are not disappearing, but the tools used inside them are evolving quickly. A similar pattern appears in human resources and recruiting. Modern hiring platforms can screen resumes, rank candidates, and automate large portions of early-stage evaluation, but interviews, culture assessment, and final hiring decisions still rely heavily on human interaction. The role remains essential, yet parts of the process are becoming increasingly automated. Project management roles show a similar shift. AI-driven tools can now assist with timeline planning, task allocation, and progress tracking. but coordinating teams, resolving conflicts, and making real-time decisions during complex projects still depend on experienced managers. In these positions, artificial intelligence is less likely to replace the role entirely. Instead, it changes how the work is performed and how teams are structured around it. The third category includes roles that remain significantly harder to automate. These positions rely heavily on human judgment, leadership, and complex interpersonal interaction. One example is senior leadership and strategic decision-making roles. Artificial intelligence can assist with data analysis and forecasting, but defining long-term strategy, navigating uncertainty, and making high-stakes decisions still depend on human leadership. Technology can inform those decisions, but it rarely replaces the responsibility behind them. Another category includes roles centered around creative direction and original thinking. AI systems can generate drafts, design concepts, and preliminary ideas, but shaping a brand identity, developing original campaigns, or defining a creative vision usually requires human interpretation and cultural awareness. There are also roles built around deep relationship management. Positions involving negotiation, partnership development, or executive client relationships depend on trust, credibility, and long-term human interaction. These are areas where automation currently plays a supporting role rather than a replacement. In these cases, artificial intelligence often acts as a productivity tool. It helps professionals work faster, process more information, and explore more ideas. But the core value of the role remains human. The conversation about artificial intelligence and jobs is often framed in extremes. Some claim that AI will replace entire professions overnight. Others insist that nothing fundamental will change. In reality, the shift happening across corporate workplaces is far more subtle. Most jobs are not disappearing, but many are quietly being redesigned. Tasks are shifting, responsibilities are evolving, and in some cases, the value of certain roles is being reassessed. For professionals, the most important question may not be whether artificial intelligence will replace jobs. The more relevant question is how the structure of work itself is changing, because the roles that remain valuable in the coming years will likely be those that combine technical understanding with human judgment, the ability to analyze information, communicate clearly, solve complex problems, and adapt to new tools. In other words, the future of work may not belong solely to artificial intelligence, but it will almost certainly belong to people who learn how to work alongside it.